All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. For today's show, I am joined by Clint Russell, host of the Liberty Lockdown podcast. Clint, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, man.
Thank you for having me, Evan. It's always a pleasure to meet new like-minded people. So thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I feel like it's a time to come together, collaborate, really architect some new ideas and visions for the direction we're moving in.
Now or never.
Now or never. Exactly. Well, I want to start. I want to kind of ask you a bit of, maybe this is a loaded question. I don't know. I tend to be decent at
all questions are loaded. Don't worry about
it. Maybe it's a little bit of a loaded question, but I guess you're right in that sense. They all are loaded. For you, the last couple of years, for me to give it a little context to this question, my own understanding of liberty and freedom, and I've always been somebody who's really resonated with libertarian ideas. And, you know, I'm 26 and I remember being in college and being the only person in 2016 who was interested in Gary Johnson. Right. So, always resonated with the idea of liberty and freedom. But for me, these last 2.5 years have really been an awakening to what liberty and freedom actually means. So I wanted to start, since you host the Liberty Lockdown podcast, if you would give your sort of own definition or your own idea of what it actually means to be free and what it actually means to embody liberty. Because when we say that word, sometimes I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different understandings of what that actually means. So it could be good to be on sort of the same page.
Yeah, I mean, there, like you said, there are many angles you can take, you know, defining what liberty is. For me, it just means, operating of my own volition, like getting to make my own calls as to what my life looks like and who I partner with and where I live and what I do for work and, you know, what I do with my money. Like, It's just freedom, man. And as someone who's always valued that from a very young age, for whatever reason, I just felt very activated when it was all taken away. And I think that, you know, a lot of people downplay it, like, oh, it wasn't taken away. It's like, no, it was taken away. Like maybe if you didn't live in a hard blue area, like I did in California, maybe it wasn't that bad. But I feel like if you ever have a time in American history where the churches are shut down, you know, we're in trouble.
Exactly.
You know, we're in serious trouble. And that's what happened. And people accepted it. And it's heartbreaking.
It is. Well, it's interesting to see how many people, I would say, don't have their own personal understanding of what it actually means to be free. Because if you're just going along with every single thing that the government says, that whatever Joe Biden or even Donald Trump, for example, I mean, he was the president when all of this started and he didn't actively push back. So
he sure didn't stop it.
Right. Whether it's left, right, you know, both ends of the political spectrum, you have this sort of dissonance in terms of what liberty and freedom actually means. And it's interesting because I look at where we are right now, and I certainly think there's been more of an awakening to what's going on a deeper sense. But at the same time, I don't necessarily have faith when people are still talking about political solutions, or they're still talking about, finding freedom within this system. I mean,
it's very tough.
Do you think we can actually salvage a lot of the systems that we're living within? Is it possible to be truly free in a system that has become so centralized?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, the good news is that in a collapsing empire, which is where we exist currently, in my humble estimation,
I would agree.
There will be cracks within that tyranny that allow for arguably greater freedom than we had when things weren't so tyrannical. So it requires you to kind of throw off the shackles of your mind and go and live in those areas and operate in that marketplace and things like that. So there's risk involved, but in fact, you're more free by doing so. So you can actually be more free today, probably more free today than you were, you know, pre-COVID era. So, you know, even though I'm very, as I've said, I'm heartbroken about what happened over the past 2.5 years. I'm also kind of grateful in a way. You know, it really sped up the process of millions and millions of us awakening to how severe, you know, the situation is. That's important. It also obviously radicalized a lot of people that were already, you know, deeply valuing liberty themselves. So it's not, you know, there's always a give and take. It's a little yin yang action. Like, yes, things are brutal, but at the same time, like it's gonna be darkest before the dawn type mentality. So I don't think that these systems are reformable though. I just did an episode tonight where the focus of it was abolishing the FBI.
Hmm.
I think that these, particularly, the three-letter agencies that are just so obviously and transparently corrupt, they have to go.
Yeah.
You can't reform that. The FBI, for the record, has never not been a corrupt bullshit institution. So I see no
Right.
reason to even pretend that we're going to reform this thing. Just get rid of it. It's insane. So that's my position on things. Whether or not the American people come along for the ride and choose the path for actual resolution to the issues that ail us, I have no idea. We'll see.
Right. It's one of those things that it is unpredictable. But you see people like, I think it was Dan Crenshaw just the other day saying, "Oh, you can't abolish the FBI. That's blasphemous," right? So
Exactly.
you're going to have people on both sides that are fighting to keep this system alive because they both benefit from it. And
I'm stunned that the neocon warmongering World Economic Forum eye patch John McCain doesn't want to abolish the FBI. It's just bizarre to me. I would have never guessed.
Right, exactly. Who would have ever thought that is the reality of things?
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy because you do see we talk about like the World Economic Forum, for example. Everybody who is I would say in that neocon type of role, they have connections to the World Economic Forum. Joe Biden, Dan Crenshaw. I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to be incorrect on this, but I believe the House of Representatives McCarthy, Republican minority leader, I believe he has ties to them too. So, I mean,
most of them do.
yeah,
I mean, Gavin Newsom. There's
yeah,
Trudeau,
oh,
the Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister. The list goes on and on. I think Dan Andrews in Australia too. Like wherever the harshest lockdowns, where you find a World Economic Forum leader. I don't think that's coincidental, personally.
exactly. And we could always, and it's easy for us to look at the World Economic Forum and sort of point the finger at these politicians and really get angry. And I think there's a level of that that's justified. But in the same sense, it's difficult to, when you have such I guess, a machine that is the World Economic Forum, right? And you have this huge system that's in play. There's not a lot that we can necessarily do to snap our fingers and change the system in itself. So in a way, when we focus everything on that macro scale, I think it kind of takes away our own freedom in a sense and our own
For
ability
sure.
to have, I'd say, an individual level of responsibility to make
Yeah.
change and to actually go into our local communities. Because, if we want a decentralized approach, we actually need to have our vision aligned with the decentralized method. If we're focusing on the macro, it's impossible to bring to fruition a system that is decentralized, a system that
Yeah.
is, I would say, within the local communities and power into the actual hands of people instead of this sort of autonomous machine that we've built and is really harvesting people for
Mhm.
their own energy in a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
ways.
I think that, like I try and make a habit of, if I'm going to be doing any sort of bitching on the internet,
Yeah.
like whether that's a podcast or just tweeting, whatever, I better do something to improve myself that day. So
Mm,
like I always try and keep a balance. So like I work out basically every day because I want to go and scream into the void every day.
yep.
Um, and I think that's just like, you got to find a balance there. If you're purely externalizing all of the issues of the world and not taking any accountability for any of this, you're not going to remedy any of this. Like I really believe that, and ultimately you're going to be miserable too. Like if you think that we're headed towards, depression, World War III, any sort of craziness, and you're not prepared for that physically, then what are you talking about? Like why are you even speaking to me about, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that? You need to do this right now. You ain't doing that. Why am I going to listen to you? So that's my vantage point on it. Like make sure that you're walking the talk, man. If like I hear people talking about like wanting revolution, so I don't want a revolution at all, but I look at them and I'm like, bro, you couldn't run a mile. You're gonna fight a revolution? Like where are we at right now? It's crazy.
Right, exactly. It's like, where's that fine line? You need to like embody that warrior mentality and that warrior archetype in a sense. And I'm the same way. I've picked up boxing and martial arts, and I go
Oh
to the
yeah.
gym every day, and it's something that really activates my own inner warrior, but in a way, and I can take self responsibility and find ways to be a little bit more independent each day,
Yeah.
break away from my dependencies on this system, whether it's connecting with a local farmer, or learning about the soil and growing food and things of that nature, right? And
Right.
I'm in Montana right now, which is actually a pretty good state for that. There's a lot of local
Oh,
farmers.
heck yeah,
There's a
dude.
lot of people who are sort of interested in that same thing. But at the same
I
time, oh, sorry, you can
no,
go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I love the Jordan Peterson line. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's something to the effect of like, uh, don't try to fight the monster, become the monster, and then control it. Like
Hmm.
that type of mentality. It's like, if you're not a dangerous man, you're basically gonna get ran over. Like, I want to be very dangerous, but then I want to be totally peaceful. Like that's,
Exactly.
it seems kind of contradictory, but it's really not. Like if you don't have the capacity to inflict violence, you're not being peaceful. You're just doing the only thing you're capable of.
Right. Exactly.
Like you have to be capable in order to not be doing these things.
Hmm.
So I think that's an important lesson, and it's ultimately like it's better for the soul too. I think that I don't talk about this often, but I really think that the war against masculinity in men has been just a catastrophe.
Mm.
Like it ultimately has turned our entire culture into one that looks towards the government for safety.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a bunch of dangerous ass dudes out there to to look after the tribe, so to speak, I know we live in a very modern age and we have all this technology and all this stuff, but it's like the truth is, you still have this primal desire to be a protector as a man. Most men do, at least. And
Exactly.
if you don't fulfill that, you end up in a really black, like really dark place. So
No,
that's kind of
exactly.
that's been something I've gotten into more in the less basically since the lockdown started. I've been like, all right, yeah, I
Yeah. No,
better start
absolutely.
getting in shape.
That's how I feel. And it's funny because I always had the approach of health and fitness, and like, probably 2017, 2018 is when I really started getting into it. So it was before all the lockdown stuff, but my perspective on it shifted in a way where it was less egoic and more about
Mm.
becoming the man that I am meant to be, right? And
Oh,
really,
I love that. I
yeah,
love that.
reclaiming who it is that I am, because so much of, I think we kind of mentioned this earlier about externalizing everything and outsourcing everything. We
Right.
do that with our own sovereignty, our own masculinity, men in particular. And I think women do it with their own femininity too. So
Yes.
there's simultaneously this war on masculinity, this war on femininity, and you have this sort of almost like neutral, there is no true masculinity, there is no true femininity. And so
Mm.
you create this society that is so unbalanced and so desperate for a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose, because people have
Right.
lost their true way. And so
And
uh
where does that go though? You know where that goes. That goes towards a tyrant taking over,
mhm,
because
mhm,
you have people that are in complete disarray and they're just looking for leadership. And I don't blame them. I'm looking for leadership too, but I want that leadership to be representative of my belief system, which is human liberty and allowing it to flourish, because ultimately I believe that produces the greatest good for civilization as a whole. And man, if we don't if we don't get more of a ground up, like a bottom up movement of people self-improving so they don't look to the top and say, at all costs, keep me safe. That's hell. And
ex-
we just lived through hell. Now
ex-
I sound like Jordan Peterson. I'm bringing up hell. I never do that.
well, I mean, you're right. It's exactly right in the sense. And it's interesting about that leadership, like you mentioned. It's I look for the same thing. And I think in a way, there's that old adage of, if you don't see what you want represented on the larger scale, you sort of become that. And I think in a way, by the work that we do, just whether it's through podcasting or going out and, reaching the audiences that we have, we're
Mhm.
embodying roles of leadership so people can step into this themselves. I mean, we're not necessarily running for political office or in
Right.
going into this system, but we're finding ways to poke holes and make change just through the embodiment of our own work and the inner work that
100%.
we've done. And we kind of create that leadership, which has been lacking. And I think that's why there hasn't been I would say, large scale organization, especially prior to 2020, about pure freedom and and really personal liberty. I think it's starting to come together a bit
Yes.
more.
Yeah, it is. It is now, because we took over the Libertarian Party because they didn't represent freedom, unfortunately. No, I completely agree with you, man. I think that, like, I've had, I can't even tell you, hundreds and hundreds of DMs or emails or whatever from people over the past 2 years that are just thanking me for, telling the truth and keeping them sane, giving them the courage to quit their job or to tell their boss to shove it when they were trying to put something in their body against their will. Um, you know, it doesn't take a lot. You just have to show people that they're not crazy. You're not crazy to want to be free, man. You're not crazy.
Exactly.
You are functioning from, in my opinion, maybe the basest human instinct, which is to have no masters. And if that's not the basis human instinct, then maybe I'm just built different. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. But I think at the end of the day, people that want to be enslaved, once they have that, they yearn to be free.
Yeah.
So I'm just not willing to be enslaved to have that revelation. I'm feeling it in the moment. I'm like, I can see 3 steps ahead. I know exactly where this is going. Central bank digital currency, climate change lockdowns, the death of fiat currency, total panopticon surveillance system. I see it all. I see exactly what you're doing to us. I know where this is going. No, thank you. I'm not interested. I reject your offer and fuck you.
Right. Exactly.
That's my perspective on it.
We reject the Great Reset and we raise you a great awakening into greater freedom and greater liberty, and the true pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, right? That's what I think we all strive for. And it's interesting because I think the way our system is designed, most people are already enslaved. And I remember when Kanye West so many years ago said slavery was a choice, and he got ridiculed for it in the media. And at the time, I didn't necessarily think too much about the comment. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't lean one way or the other. But now I think about it, and in a way, we are only enslaved to the degree that we actually choose to be so. And I recognize that within myself, that I had, even now, I'm sure I still have blind spots in ways that I'm reliant on, whether it's the system or just old belief systems, whatever it may be. But as I continue on this path to self-discovery and understanding liberty, I realize I am slowly but surely freeing myself from my own mind, because it's only myself that has ever held me back. It's never been
Interesting.
the government. And it's, somebody told me the other day that I think it was on my most recent podcast. It must have been the guy Jason Christoff, who's a self-sabotage coach, and he's really excellent. I would definitely recommend checking him out. He said, if aliens were to come down to Earth, they'd never be able to locate government. It's not a real entity, right? They would hear, maybe they could find people who are politicians. They could find buildings, monuments, whatever it may be, but there is no actual entity, material entity that is government, right? And so how can
just the people that make it up? Yeah,
right, exactly.
And our collective belief in this nonsensical, monopoly on violence. Yeah, I totally agree, man.
Yeah, it's only our own beliefs and way of, I guess, understanding and perceiving the world that holds this whole reality together.
But what's interesting is that it's our collective belief in it, because if one of us decides it's not real, it doesn't really matter, because they can still bring down an FBI agent and entrap you and put you in prison for the rest of your life. Like, you can say that your mind is your primary enslaver, but for some people it's not. There are over 1 million people in prison right now in America. It's like, there's a lot of people that are truly enslaved, and I mean, some of them rightfully so if they committed violent crimes and things like that, but then there's a lot of them that are not rightfully so. And and so my hope is that we get to a point someday where both our belief in government as a whole is greatly diminished, but also, as you were saying, the amount of free, like, liberty in our own minds that we have increases. I think that they play off each other too. I think that as you have a diminishing state, you have an increase in your own cerebral capacity for free thinking and things like that. That was actually one of the things I didn't mention in the intro as to what does liberty mean to me. Speaking the truth and speaking freely, we can't do that today. Like, I don't know if you're going to put this on YouTube, but there's a chance that even though I have told you nothing but the truth so far, that they could just go gone, you know. Right. And I've every single one of my cohorts on Twitter, all of them have lost their accounts. I'm the only one that has maintained it, which makes them all think I'm an FBI agent, which is tragic. but the truth is, I'm very cautious. You know, I say very like hardcore libertarian shit, but I just say it in a way that I know I'm just skating through, just barely getting under that line, that arbitrary line, wherever they sent it. But it's really unhealthy. I mean, it is real. Like, even myself, someone who's speaking as freely as humanly possible, I still am having my speech chilled. I'm still not saying every ounce of the truth, because I know there's certain things on certain platforms that I can't say. That is not a good way for you to formulate a civilization. It ultimately it stifles innovation. It stifles our own creativity. It stifles our own well-being, our own mental health. I mean, there's a lot of this plays into that like I don't think people think about enough. Like, if you just think about the people in East Germany or under Stalin, you could read Solzhenitsyn and find out all about. Now I really sound like Jordan Peterson. I'm bringing up Solzhenitsyn. Jesus Christ.
I was gonna say the Jordan Peterson influence is strong, but I resonate with it. I resonate with it.
Me too. I love the guy. What can I do?
But no, and you're exactly right. And I think a lot of people don't realize how these systems, we talk about freedom of speech and that external versus internal, it's so intertwined, right? Because of their external elimination of freedom of speech, it creates an internal response of self-censorship.
Absolutely.
And we aren't able to fully articulate the truth in its purest form, right? And I think
and even more like horrific is that we can't explore areas of confusion to try and discover that truth. Perfect example is during the COVID hysteria. I mean, how much of the truth was bannable for 2 years? They just recently came out and said that on YouTube, we can now say that masks are not efficacious against COVID. That they just, like, yesterday.
Yeah.
Dude, do you know how insane that is? That for over 2.5 years, you were banned for saying that. And now today, it's the truth. Like, it's crazy, man. And then think about all the mental health issues that these kids are now suffering under because I wasn't allowed to convey that message to them. You don't have anything to worry about, young person.
Right.
Young, healthy person. It's just tragic.
Exactly.
It makes me, God, I don't even know. It makes me angry, but even moreover, it just makes me sad. It makes me sad that we think this is how you protect people, by lying to them. Insane.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's sort of the generation I think that, I myself was raised in. I'm 26, so I grow up with the participation trophy era where we're coddled, where we aren't given the fullest versions of truth. We shy away from giving people real criticism. It's very much a soft type of
very much,
like overly nurturing, which creates what we were talking about earlier, really the dependency upon a nanny state. Because if we are just overly coddled and overly nurtured, we're never going to have the ability to, I would say, fly free into being ourselves, right? It's like a bird. When there's a baby bird in the nest and the mother knows it's time to kick it out, it will literally kick it out of the nest. And if it doesn't fly, it will die. Like, that's the end. It's the end of the bird's life if it's not going to fly free. So
nature's tough, man.
Exactly.
Nature is tough. And this is why I think there's something not natural about how we have decided to raise these most recent generations of kids. I just barely squeaked past that. Like, I was fortunate enough that in my very formational years of like elementary school and stuff, there was no internet. I didn't have an internet growing up. Just tremendously beneficial to not have had that as a young person. I can't tell you how grateful I am for it. And it's funny because, in hindsight, or like at the time when I first got a cell phone and first was able to like play a game when I was bored or text a friend or do any of these things, I was like, I can't believe I ever lived a different way. It felt like so revelatory and just a net positive, 100% net positive. couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, it is just obviously detrimental to a huge percentage of people that they don't ever sit in silence. They don't ever allow their mind to just ruminate. It's like it's just constant distractions all the time. It's no wonder to me that the mental health crisis in this country and on the planet are just so stark right now.
Oh yeah, and I think technology is the greatest form of escapism in a lot of ways.
Yes.
We escape from ourselves, escape from reality. I think a lot of people know on a subconscious level, they know how dire things might be on a collective scale, even if they aren't
Right.
seeing the full truth, right? There is that,
Totally agree. They can feel it.
yeah, there is that feeling within, and whether they choose to explore it or not, because they have so many distractions, because there's so many numbing addictions, whether it's alcohol or pornography or whatever it may
Yep.
be. There's an addiction that's for everybody. And it's designed that way. It's designed that way.
And multiple addictions for many people.
Exactly.
I totally agree with you, man. And I think that, I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I'm certainly addicted to the internet and stuff like that. But fortunately, I supplement it with a meditation practice. I had a really bad anxiety disorder when I was your age. And I, because of exercise and because of meditation, I was able to kind of find my way through it. And I think in a weird way, it actually prepared me for the incredible anxiety inducement that came with the lockdown period. Yeah. I was just like, okay, I know what to do here. Like at least I had these tools. Had I not had those tools, I probably would have just lost my mind. I don't even know.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people don't have those tools. Most people, like, they literally are terrified of their own thoughts. Like a lot of people are. That's why they constant TV, not even just watching TV, but having your phone and twittering while you're doing that, or TikToking or whatever. It's like these people have no downtime, like none. It's just like go, like mentally, even though they're not really accomplishing much, and then sleep and then wake up and do it again. What's the first thing you grab when you wake up? The phone. Almost everybody does that. I just think it's, I'm not even taking any credit for this. I'm just super lucky that I had a time in my life where I had none of these distractions that were so readily available. So I got to kind of formulate some of myself more holistically. I'm just basically grateful for it.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way, because I started like doing meditation and breath work and all these different inward practices around 2018 or so. And so once, lockdowns hit, I didn't necessarily know what was going on, but I had that approach of, okay, let me just observe without judgment, without, accepting what this person is saying or the government saying or this or that.
Yeah.
Let me just actually observe reality as I see it versus what's being spewed online or in the news or this.
Dude, that's incredible that you had that tool belt at 22 years old. Like, very few people have that, of your generation in particular, but most generations don't have that.
I'd say it was luck. Sort of stumbled upon it, honestly.
Hey, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say I generally believe we're sort of guided to those things for a reason. There's a deeper purpose behind it all, and I can't necessarily explain why I started it, but it was
let me give you a side story to that, because I literally never thought about, like, I thought when people were having panic attacks that they were like faking it. I was like, I don't even believe this is real. I was like, this doesn't seem possible. Oh, so your brain's racing so much that you now can't breathe and you think you're dying? Like, that's nonsense. Only a pussy would have that happen. And then it happened to me. It happened to me when I was like 25, 26 years old. And I was like, what is this? It was so mystifying to me, because I had what I thought was such a stable mental framework up until that point. I was very much a perfectionist, like hard driving, very like work oriented, production oriented. And then it's funny, actually, it was me studying 9/11 that gave me my first panic attack.
Wow.
It broke my whole worldview, I swear to God. But after that, I was like, okay, I need, like, obviously there's something that's wrong in my life, and I think that's one thing that far too few people that suffer from anxiety disorders, as they call them, don't take that lesson for what it is. Like, for me, I haven't had a panic attack in years now. Years. Like, if I were to have one, it would almost feel like the first time. I've almost forgotten what the sensation of them are at this point. But for years, I had them pretty consistently until I finally found my way through it. And I think that far too few people respond to panic attacks as, okay, what lesson do I need to learn from this? Like, how can I actually improve my mental health so that this stops happening? I think it's a tool. The reason I bring it all up is just to say, I think panic attacks are actually your biological way of your mind telling you something with your lifestyle is catastrophically wrong.
Exactly. I would agree.
But doctors won't tell you that.
Of
They
course.
will not. They'll just like, take this pill, you're good to go.
Mask the symptoms. I mean, then that's what we've seen with the COVID response, just perpetuate disease, perpetuate sickness. And I think it extends into mental health, because I have a similar story in a sense. When I was in my, last year of college, 2017, 2018, I was starting fresh out of a relationship, newly single. Like I was, doing more partying and drinking and a bit more drugs and things of that nature. But at the same time, I was introduced to, meditation, and I was doing, psychedelics, which sort of expanded my perception on, okay, this is not all there is to reality. Like, this is really strange. So I didn't know how to sort of encapsulate a lot of these experiences I was having in meditation and, just different journeying I was doing. But so my view on reality was sort of like, I have no idea what's going on. And everything I thought was true was turning out not to be true. So, you start masking it, you start having these panic attacks and anxiety. And it was through continuous observation of them. What is this teaching me? That I would, I haven't had one in and I would say years. But it's funny, I was at a concert last week on Friday, and I asked my girlfriend, I said, "Oh, what's the type of genre?" Because I had never heard of the band. And her immediate response was anxiety inducing. And so, and I was like, okay, I'll go. And so when I
lock in,
right, exactly. I went there, sure enough. I'm like, oh, this is kind of anxiety inducing. But I was able to actually be like, okay, let me observe this. Let me breathe through it. Let me see what's going on. And it was actually a very positive experience, and I enjoyed it. So, I think it goes into the idea of, how we view ourselves, whether we're in a victim mindset, victim consciousness of, the world is working against us, and my mind is working against me. These panic attacks or diseases are working against me, versus an opportunity for empowerment, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. And
this ties in perfectly to what I said earlier, where people that are looking for external problems all the time, they don't ever reflect internally. It's also those same people will usually look for external solutions to every problem. So like if you're dealing with something internally that's really painful, because anxiety attacks are painful for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people will not look for, internal medicine, like truly holistic ways to remedy it. They'll just automatically knee jerk. It's like, give me whatever, give me that bottle of booze, or give me a prescription drug or whatever. And it's like, I'm just telling you, it's not how you get through this stuff. It just isn't. I mean, certainly there are extreme cases where someone's schizophrenic or something like that, where it can get to a point where like medication may be mandatory. I don't know. But I'm just saying, for the vast majority of people, you have like, I think it's like 30% of people are on some sort of psychotropic medication in America. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for that many people to need this stuff. And it's just to me, it's hard evidence of the dishealth, the unhealth of our society right now. And I pray that instead of having, really hard times before we have kind of a re-enlightenment, that we can do it now, do it while things are still standing, because it's going to be a lot harder to find time to breathe when you're fighting to stay alive.
Oh, exactly. Well, and people are going to be further put into survival mode, right? And I think that's where a lot of people already are. You kind of mentioned how people are go, 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 go. I think what happens is it creates this unconscious fight or flight response when you're always 100%. Getting this constant stimuli. And so you're constantly on edge, you're in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you don't have time to rationalize. You don't have time to think. Like, you're incapable of it because your body is in such a stress response. And that's exactly what this system relies on from, I think the moment that we enter school. And I come from a teaching background, and I'm at the point where I don't think I could ever teach in a public school again, just based on
we need you though, brother.
I know. I recognize that. And it's interesting. It's like, there's that fine line of how much can I bring I've had to have the question of how much like liberty and true freedom can I bring to students in a public school setting? And it depends on where you are. The fact
Yeah.
I'm from the East Coast. I went to school and college in Boston. So
Nice.
in that city, there's no chance it's going to happen. Like there's no
No,
way. Now that I'm out
no,
in
for sure.
Montana, there's a little bit of a, better prospects for it, I would say. But
At least a
uh,
chance. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, and with curriculum, the what's it called? SEL, social emotional learning, that's getting rolled out and stuff like that. It's going to get harder and harder for even, well-meaning, good,
yeah,
quote unquote teachers to actually do good.
yeah,
So I mean, as with everything, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, it's going to make the kids that are in public school probably a lot worse off, but it's also going to force more and more parents to remove their kids from public school, which will make them infinitely better off. So, or put them in private school or whatever.
right.
I really do think that we are dividing this civilization by, the free thinking, just the free broadly, and the enslaved. Like it's going to get so stark at some point, because like you're now having like break off civilizations. You have like the New Hampshire Libertarian Free State Project
Yeah,
movement. Like those people are gonna, like, those kids that grow up in that, they'll never be able to, be buck broken and put back in the public school system. Like those kids are going to be wild animals, compared to
yeah.
the normal people, quote unquote normal people. It's going to be fascinating to watch, though.
Right. And it's interesting because this divide, in a way, it's sort of territorial, but at the same time, it's not, right? Because, I grew up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is on the seacoast. And that's where I
Mm,
went to high school and, where I was raised. And it compared to the rest of New Hampshire, it is very much like a very liberal area. Like it's very much
yeah,
like Massachusetts and sort of the
right.
surrounding states. But anytime you go north, you have that freedom mindset, that freedom mentality. And I've been following the Free State Project very closely. And I'm
Oh,
like,
they're awesome.
wow, I wonder how the people on the seacoast are going to respond to this, because, they're not in
Yeah,
alignment with those same values, despite being in the same state. So
yeah.
it's a territorial divide, but at the same time, there's contrast within each state. I mean,
Oh yeah, big time.
Montana has its big liberal areas. I mean, Bozeman, Montana, which is about an hour and a half from where I am and where I'm going to be come wintertime, like it's very liberal. Like it's very much, it's not like sort of the rural areas of
Oh
Montana,
no,
So
no.
you
There's
have all
huge
this,
divides.
right?
Huge divides. I totally agree. I mean that there's like almost no similarity between the Free Staters and some of the Blue City
Yeah,
areas in New Hampshire. And this is why I think that, ultimately you can't really have a civil war in this country. And I'm grateful for that, because
yeah,
we're so interspersed ideologically and physically or geographically. So we're going to have to learn, like, either it's going to get incredibly ugly, or we're going to have to realize that our differences are intractable. Like we cannot,
mm,
we're not going to remedy this. Like there are just fundamental core belief differences that you guys want to rule over us. We refuse to be ruled. And we're at loggerheads. Like, do you
yep,
want to take this to the inevitable conclusion of might makes right? Because I don't want to do that. So like, let's not go there. Let's just let these people go. Let me be free.
exactly.
uh, so I hope it happens, man. I think ultimately, like, the death of the dollar will be the moment where these like real breakoffs happen. Um, and I think it's coming. I think it's
Yeah,
like 15 years. Like it could really happen. Like we could. No one believed in 1986 that the USSR was going to fall by 90. And
I mean,
4 years later, there you
sure
are.
enough.
So it could happen.
And I was going to say, and I'm sure there were people in the Soviet Union in the 86 who were saying, hey, this is going to happen. And they probably weren't taken seriously, right? I mean,
Oh no, they were laughed out of the boat. They thought they probably put them in insane asylums.
right.
They were so crazy at that point.
Exactly. Well, and it's fascinating because I wonder how people are going to respond when, when everything comes crashing down in an economic standpoint, an ideological standpoint, everything that we're so familiar with. Are we going to be able to unite around our similarities? Because, even now, we speak to somebody we're ideologically opposed to, the vast majority of our belief system, and maybe the difference is growing, over time. And I'm certain, you know, 30 years ago we had more in common, but I think even now we still have more in common than we will ever choose to necessarily recognize or see, right? And that's sort of the nature of it. So I wonder if we're going to be able to unite around those common principles. Because if you ask, what is it that people want on either side of the spectrum, wherever they fall, right? On this vast, if the spectrum even exists, I don't even know. I don't even know if it does. People are who they are. But, generally people want freedom, happiness, security, assurance, connection, very core human values. And even the COVID debate, right? The people who want freedom, they just didn't feel unsafe, right? So, they already felt safe, but the people who were afraid, they were valuing safety over freedom, and they were seeking the safety that a lot of people maybe already had. So
so much so that they made those arguments. They said, well, you can't be free if you're dead. Like that was their mentality. And my personal opinion, even I was afraid of COVID in the first couple months. I didn't know what it was. I don't think anybody really had a handle on it at that point. But even in that period, I was still like, no, you do not lock us down. But it's because I have some like core principles that I just knee-jerk reaction. Like, you do not tell me that I can't function, my business, I can't go to the beach. Like, are you out of your minds? Like, if I'm so concerned about my safety, I will voluntarily not do those things. You don't dictate that I do those things. So that there is some core differences, but you're absolutely right though, that the people that were horrified, they were like, I want my freedom to be alive. It was still a kind of a freedom oriented debate. At least that's how they try to frame it. And I think that's interesting. California, Gavin Newsom, he actually read ads saying we are the free state, and he was running them, contrasting the California governance versus DeSantis and the Florida governance. It's insane. I mean, it's so upside down world, but it probably does appeal to some people that saw COVID as this catastrophic risk to themselves and their loved ones, and they're like, I want to be free to get back to normal life, so we have to make sacrifices in the interim and blah blah blah. It's but you're right. I think the real key is that 80% of people do share much of the same desires. There's like 10 to 20% that really they don't share my principles at all. Like, they're just lunatics as far as I'm concerned, and they look at me as a lunatic, so that's fine.
That's fine.
So if we're going to have any coming together, it's going to be the 80% of people that are share some of those base values that you're talking about.
Right. And uniting around the similarities. And when things hit the fan, which it's interesting because I don't know if there's going to be one particular moment where things collapse. A lot of people are almost sort of waiting for an Armageddon, or they're waiting for that. There it is. It's all coming down at once. I think it's going to be this slow implementation of things like digital ID, a slow rollout. And I think
we're in it right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bang moment either.
Yeah, it's like I heard David Icke phrase it as the totalitarian tiptoe, where you have one little moment, and it's that idea of where the government takes 2 steps forward upon your rights, and we get angry and we yell and we're like, oh, what's going on? And then they take 1 step backward, and it's like, okay, oh, sorry, we
win.
Yeah. And the people go, oh, okay, great, but they still took 1 step forward on our liberty. They still infringed upon us, and that cycle repeats until you realize your initial line in the sand was a whole mile back behind us, and we're long past our initial where we were, and that's only
what we were willing to accept is now 10,000 miles in the rearview mirror. I mean, there's tons of different metaphors for this. There's the frog in the pot metaphor. There's the ratchet effect. Like, it's all true. I mean, it's undeniably true. Like, I don't think you ever accept lockdowns if it's not for the fact that you've already had the Patriot Act rolled out that made you feel as if you're a cattle every time you get on a plane and they get to pat you down and check out your rectum. It's like, none of that would have been acceptable had we not accepted that. Because 1999 people, if you were to just say, hey, you have to stay home for the next year and a half, 2 years, they would have been like, fuck you. Not a chance. Not happening. But you slowly indoctrinate people into this acquiescence, this faith in government, and also just a go along to get along mentality. You saw it in Australia in a really stark fashion. Those people who I always thought of as being like really independent and liberty minded, just all of a sudden were like totally enslaved. It's remarkable. I'm
Absolutely.
sorry.
And
This boat behind me is blaring music. Can you hear it? I can shut my door.
I was gonna say, I can't hear it. It's not coming through on the mic.
All right,
So
great, cool.
someone's out having a party on the water. Hey, that's great.
Check it out. Check that boat out.
Hey, look at that. There we go. Why was I not invited? Come on. Oh man. But yeah, I was gonna say it's the slow implementation of this agenda. It isn't gonna be overnight. I think a lot of people are gonna look back once they've been almost hurt enough to the point
Yeah.
where, and that's the sad reality of it. When I asked, in my most recent podcast with Jason Christoph, I said, what does it actually take? How obvious does it have to get? And he said, a lot of times people have to experience pain. They have to have something catastrophic happen in their own lives to even have that earth-shattering moment where, things, it's like, oh, wow, okay, this is the reality and I'm sitting in it. And I tend to believe that we can't be a victim of our own choices, right? So there's a poem I was reading by Rumi, and I love Rumi. He's sort of timeless in a sense, over 1,000 years ago, and he had one called "Let Them Sleep," and it's just about people who aren't interested in. He was referring to love and sort of this. He mentioned awakening specifically, just to let them be who they are. Right? There's nothing we can force upon people, in a sense. So, as
I've learned that too.
yeah, as painful as it is, you can't force feed this information to people. You can't force them to see what's going on. My brother lives in California, and I'm sure he's voted for Newsom in the recall and
Oof.
all that. He's had his shots and his boosts, whatever. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's not like I'm gonna hold a prejudice against him for getting his shots by any means. It's still gonna be all love. It's still gonna be
Yeah.
okay.
No.
This
For
is where
sure.
you're at. So
Yeah. Where I have a hard time with forgiveness is when it's actually voting for someone like Newsom. I mean, Newsom
yeah,
is just such a nightmare. It's like, I obviously I don't begrudge him getting his jabs or whatever. Like, go, mask up for the rest of your life. I really don't care.
yep,
But if you're gonna basically employ someone to force things in my body and things like that, it's like, all right, man, now you're kind of like, this is almost a nap violation. Like, you're almost
yeah,
you're really encroaching in my lifestyle. But ultimately, I didn't have a choice, and his single vote doesn't matter, so I should probably just let it go. But I had to flee because of it. I think that's really the next phase of this, is that people that do have really deeply held fundamental core principles are now, they're finding their meccas. They're going to the promised land, be that New Hampshire or Florida or Tennessee or Texas or wherever feels right for you. Some people it's Mexico.
yep.
It's lot of different places. And that's, to me, that's progress. Like, I agree with you. I would love it if we could just kind of come together and kumbaya moment it, but it just doesn't seem likely. So I think it's probably important that we go be with our people.
Absolutely. Well, and this, like we were kind of saying earlier, it's the time to come together and the time to forge I would say, more intimate communities and actually start building the change, because, we can't fix something that is such a macro scale, especially when we don't believe the solution even lives within that macro scale. So why even try it, right? The
Right.
solution comes from in the local communities. So just start forging that intimacy and respect for thy neighbor who is directly across from us, and build that trust and build
Yeah.
that mutual companionship. And I think that's where we're going to find our freedom. It's not going to
Yeah.
be as much as I take I would say there's a comedy to somebody like Joe Biden and what's going on at the federal level. At the same time, that it has an impact on my life, but it also doesn't. It only has the impact that I let it, to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Well, that's the inflation. I mean, the
Yeah,
inflation is a serious impact, but that's not just Biden. That's just the
the
system
system in itself.
itself. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I certainly think that's what I've loved most about my show, taking off in a little bit of popularity, is that I now get to have conversations with such interesting people and create community. And now I go all over the country and I speak to like Libertarian Party conventions, or even not, just other events and things like that. And I get to meet all these, young people. I think that's the thing that gives me the most hope, is that, even though I just turned 40, I still just feel incredibly blessed that there are some young people out there that share my worldview. Because
Yeah.
for a time, I really felt like I was alone. I felt like after the Ron Paul revolution moment, about 2013, 14, it was just like, we all went our own way, and it was just kind of in the wind type feeling. And fortunately, I had my career to focus on, so I didn't worry about it too much. But I'm very grateful to see that there is kind of a reignition of the flame. It feels like it's back, and not a moment too soon.
I was gonna say, well, it has to be. It has to be, because based on the direction we're moving in. Because I look at somewhere like Canada, and they don't have nearly the same level of, I would say, vocal support or vocal, options, even within their communities for
Brutal.
freedom, like the United States has. I mean, we have our pockets, like you mentioned. So, there's a lot of good, I think, that we can tap into despite the hard times. I mean, that's that old saying, the hard times are going to create strong men, right? And strong people. So,
it's happening.
On the other end of this, again, the cliche saying of darkness before dawn, right? We're going to come out and learn and grow, ideally, right? Depending on the choices that the collective makes. And
Absolutely.
I think based on the fact that this implementation and the Great Reset, their plan is to have it by 2030, right? And get it all in place quickly, because they realize if they take too long on this, people are going to wake up and understand exactly what's going on to the same level,
Let me be even more optimistic. You're right. That's why it's so urgent for them. But even more hopeful is that central planning doesn't work. So their best laid plans are going to collapse. It's just a matter of how much do the everyday people suffer because of it. So my hope is that if we wake up before 2030 and we tell them no more, right? Like we're stopping here, then there's no more prevention of us from farming, we're done with that. Then we might be able to avoid famines and all sorts of really catastrophic consequences. But if we don't, then it's the people that are waking up today that will be able to weather that period the best. Because if you see this as clearly as it sounds like both of us do, it's incumbent upon you to take action. Like you cannot just put your head in the ground and just pray that it's all going to work its way out. Like you got to start to make that network you're talking about, get some arable land and start to grow some food, and learn how to defend yourself, or roaming marauders of starving people, things like that. Like I hope it doesn't come to that, but like if you're not taking those steps now, I don't know, man. Like it seems like now's the time. So
exactly,
as I've said, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder when you're in the middle of that panic attack if you've never learned how to work, breathe through stress. So you got to be taking a lot of steps right now, not just external, not just in your own investment life or your own career life, but also spiritual, breathing, whatever you want to call it. Like all of it's going to play a role. And I know that sounds really apocalyptic, but I actually don't view it as I've said, I don't view it as an entirely negative thing. I think that we will come out on the other side of that if we avoid nuclear war. Like I think that's the only way we really reset civilization, and I pray we don't do that, obviously. But I think odds are in our favor that doesn't happen, even though there are a chance that it does, which is horrifying. And if we can get through that period, like the teeth of the most tyrannical period, there's a potential with the technological innovations that now exist. If we can learn how to use them as the tools that they were meant to be, as opposed to the addictions that they've become, well, then you can have a really, really remarkable, kind of techno enlightenment type civilization. So
right.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm hopeful.
Where things thrive, right? And that's the beauty. I agree with you completely, man. And I think that's it. I sort of view it as this. I don't have room for a plan B, in a sense, where if everything hits the fan and there's complete Armageddon, like I understand that it's a possibility, but my sight is solely set on kind of what you just described, this techno enlightenment where we do wake up in time. And because I've heard somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, but if you create a plan B, chances are you're going to fall back on that. So, creating that soul sight of this is what we need to do. We need to step up right now, become more individually responsible and self-reliant, and be optimistic, and, do everything we can in our own power to do so. And, I'm a believer perception creates reality. So if enough people are doing that, that's the reality we're going to create. Right. And so
I would also say that, we have truth on our side. We are functioning from a real honest position. We're not trying to deceive anyone. We are literally just taking in all of the information that we can possibly accumulate, distilling it down, and then responding. A lot of people are doing that, but they're taking it in and then they're reframing it to fit their worldview, and that's it. That's all they do. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that I can have a conversation with anybody of any political stripe, and I can almost guess what they're going to say, whereas they can never guess what I'm going to say because I'm actually thinking freely. I will respond based off of actual listening to you and then responding. I think that's part of the reason my show's successful, is because when I'm having an interview, is that I'm genuinely listening. I'm genuinely curious. I'm not just like waiting for you to finish talking so that I can hit the best soundbite. It's like, that's shit. It's a crap way to live too. I don't want to, I don't learn from that. I'm like, the coolest part about my show is having on people that are, smarter than me in certain arenas that can actually inform me on stuff. And I really believe that the people that are seeking knowledge and seeking truth are going to ultimately prevail. Like,
yes.
Could I be wrong? Sure, I could be. But I like our odds.
Yes, I agree. And I would say certainly that's why your show succeeds. And I see that within your own ability to, have these types of conversations. And, what gave me a little hope is I listened to Aaron Rodgers. He made headlines going on Aubrey Marcus podcasts. And, everyone was talking about his psychedelic use or whatever and all that. But something that stood out to me was he just said the exact same thing to you, is he's going on there not to produce a soundbite. He's going in there, and the conversations he has daily, he wants to listen to people. He wants to open himself up to new perspectives and not have this rigid worldview dictate his reality, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get trapped. They see something on their screen, they go into the world just assuming that's true instead of having a direct observation or truly listening to what others think. And, that's what creates a lot of our division. It's what creates a lot of our turmoil, is
for sure, because we're not listening to each other. Of course we're going to hate each other because we're not listening to what the other person thinks. It's terrible. I got to check out that interview. I've only seen the sound bites where he like basically talks about the jab and things like that, and even that was interesting. So yeah, he's probably a deep thinking guy if he actually, especially with all the pressure, including from his own employment. He was risking tens of millions of dollars to do what he did. So that shows, in my opinion, not just courage, but character. It's like same with Novak Djokovic, who's arguably the greatest men's tennis player of all time. And, he's now in many instances not been allowed to compete and potentially will not be able to achieve, a goal that's unimaginable, and having the most not singles wins, but what do they call it? Majors win. Yeah. Of any male tennis player in history. It's like, this guy is sacrificing deeply, and it's fascinating because I always watch PTI because I think that's where I fell in love with the concept of arguing with people on the internet. They just blast Joker constantly. Like, they despise him. He's reviled by these people, and it's just fascinating to me because, like, have you even considered for a second what he's sacrificing, like what he's actually risking to follow this belief? Like, even if you don't agree with him, even if you think the jabs are safe and effective and and they're the best thing that's ever happened, can you not just respect someone who's like, I'm going to sacrifice tens of millions of dollars and records that could put me in history books for my own beliefs? Like, that's powerful. It's like Muhammad Ali with not wanting to go to Vietnam. It's like, even if you supported the war, can you not respect someone who's willing to go to jail to not go fight these people? Like, that's deeply held belief. I am always impressed by that. And I think that history shows that the people that follow their beliefs, even if they may be wrong, but just deeply held beliefs that they're willing to sacrifice for, that changes the world. That makes people pay attention. You could look at Gandhi or MLK or any of the people that have been assassinated for, telling what they felt was the truth. That's powerful moments. I hope I don't end up on that path, but I just think that, we should take those lessons seriously, that, living from principle is a beautiful thing.
Right. It's like, were you willing to make the ultimate sacrifice? And I think that's what being a martyr is truly about. It's not even an egoic thing necessarily. If you just stand strong in your principles and who you are, you have to be willing to accept with the consequences of that from a society that maybe is not interested in that, right? And I think
Right.
all the individuals you mentioned, some of them paid the ultimate price, but they wouldn't take back what they were doing just
No,
for the fear of that, right? And I think that's
no,
truly,
they did it in the face of the fear.
yeah,
That's what makes it so beautiful. It's like Martin Luther King was receiving death threats from the FBI. Like,
yeah,
that's horrifying. you know, like I feel like I'm pretty courageous and principled, but if I were to get a letter from the FBI telling me if I don't stop, dot dot dot, um, I would have to really think deeply. Like, do I want to continue to do this? It's incredible what these people did.
yeah,
And I try and take that inspiration into my own life. It's like there's something bigger than just reacting to the fear of your own mortal coil, and
yeah,
I'm not even really religious, but there's just something really beautiful about believing that your life is bigger than your own life,
yes.
um, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. It's like the identification beyond ego into this larger picture and purpose and sort of
Yeah.
the role that we can have. I mean, because the domino effect of even just any small individual action that we take, I mean, it's monumental. I always think about if we were to look at a bird's eye view of our own lives and the impact that we've already had, we'd be astounded. And it's,
Yes,
because
for sure.
it's not quantifiable. And, somebody like Martin Luther King Jr., obviously you can kind of quantify his impact, but at the same time you can't, because there's so much to it. It's deep.
Well, and what's really neat is that it's timeless.
Yeah.
His impact is still being felt today. That he inspires me, even though I don't even agree with many of his beliefs. He was
Right.
basically a socialist. Like I'm very much not that. But I can still see beauty in it. I can still see beauty in his sacrifice and his belief and what he's done. And if that changes me and I change the world because of what he did, the inspiration that he gave me, then I may end up inspiring someone 40 years down the road that ultimately Martin Luther King is responsible for. Like there's a butterfly effect of just
Yep.
deeply held belief.
Yeah.
So
True
I don't know.
principle. It's like
Yeah.
I remember when I was a big Tupac listener in my high school days, big into rap music. I remember a
Oh, me
quote
too.
from him, and I still like Tupac. He said, "I'm not going to be the change the world, or I'm not going to be the one to change the world, but I guarantee I'll spark the mind that does." And
Oh, that's awesome.
it's that same principle, right? And
That's
that's
so cool. I forgot about that quote. I listened to Tupac like religiously in high
yeah,
school. He was so inspirational to me too. Um, yeah, that's beautiful, man. I really think that you know Dave Smith, he is the heir apparent to Ron Paul. Ron Paul's moment in '08, the
yeah,
debate stage with Giuliani, is the reason that Dave Smith is now doing what he's doing. I'm doing what I'm doing because of what Dave Smith and Ron Paul have done. Hopefully there's a few people that feel inspired by my work and end up doing something more. And it's just like, even if we aren't the ones that get the glory, who cares? It's like it's because we are working with less ego in mind. I'm not going to say totally ego less, but
right,
less ego in mind, because there are things that we value more than anything, so much that we would die for them. Like that's such a powerful thing. It's almost impossible to be egoistic in
yeah,
that fashion. Like if you're going to die for it, like, well, then you can't be ego, right? Because
exactly,
you're not going to be around to appreciate it.
right.
So yeah, I think that's true. See, now I'm feeling way more hopeful. I feel like we're gonna win this. We'll be all right.
Yeah, like this has been this has been a big like white pill podcast, to be honest with you. I didn't know if that was going to be the path we took, but I agree with you, man. I feel that same exact sentiment. And
That's awesome.
the direction we're moving, like I think the dominoes have already started falling, and we can't predict what's going to happen. And even if it's not in our own lifetimes, I still think we are setting a foundation
Yeah,
for freedom to thrive. Whether even
totally.
even if there is a total systematic uh I guess, what could you say, infringement upon liberties on a larger scale than what we're seeing now, there
Right.
are still going to be those pockets of liberty that were rooted in the work that we're doing now, that were
Yeah.
founded based on exactly exactly what it is we're doing now. And based on that small movement, the pendulum is bound to swing back in the opposite way. So from those small pockets, you'll have a larger movement that's eventually
Yeah.
created.
and
So
and central planning inevitably collapses in on itself. So those small pockets will become bigger and bigger pockets in that period, and they very much could be, reading End the Fed, in their inspirational phase when they're formulating these plans, or they could be listening to Part of the Problem or whatever, like this. Like there will be a butterfly effect of this movement that exists today, and I'm just grateful to be, a fraction of it. It feels more purposeful than I've ever felt. And I was making enormous amounts of money as as an entrepreneur, and it pales in comparison to the amount of gratification I get from doing what I do now. So that to me tells me that I'm on the right path, and let's hope that it leads to a better tomorrow. We'll see.
Oh yeah. Well, I feel the same way, man. And even if tomorrow isn't a little better, I think the next day will be. So, we're moving in the right direction. So awesome, man. This has been awesome to have this conversation and, connect. We're definitely aligning in our vision of what we're creating right now. So
yeah, no, it was great to meet you, man. You remind me, you're like the libertarian Duncan Trussell. You took me down I don't even know if you're familiar, but
yeah,
you took me down very much the spiritual kind of side of why I do what I do. And I don't talk about it all that often because I don't know, it just feels too grandiose, almost. But if it happens organically, it just feels right. So
yeah,
it felt right.
I absolutely agree, man. Well, and let's definitely plan on staying in touch and connecting more. And where would you want to send, anybody who is from my podcast new to your work, where would you send them to connect with you or your own show? Where can they find you
at Liberty Lock Pod on Twitter? I am almost at 50,000 followers. So if you guys could follow me before I get nuked, I'd appreciate that. And then Liberty Lockdown, if you just search that on any podcatcher or YouTube or Odyssey or wherever else, you should find it. What else? Oh, I have Styx Hexenhammer 666, who's this huge YouTuber who I love, debating Dave Smith on my show on September 4th on Trump's legacy. And that is going to be probably the biggest episode I've ever done. I'll be the moderator, which is insane because I'm way too opinionated to be a moderator, but I'm going to do my best. So hopefully your audience will check that out. It'll be a barn burner. I think that thing is going to be just enormous because both those guys are two of the best debaters I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And they're both brilliant, just whip smart. I have no idea how it's going to play out. I can't wait to watch it, and I'm going to be on it. So that's even cooler.
Dude, that's awesome. No, man, yeah. I'll link all of your everything you just put in my episode description. I was going to say to all the listeners, I'm very selective in what I listen to because I recognize where I recognize truth and authenticity, and so I recommend your show to everybody who's listening to this because I see the true value in it, and the work that you're doing.
And vice versa. Thank you so much, man. I can tell a true believer myself. So actually go ahead and leave your plugs because I think I'm going to throw this up on the audio version of my show.
Hey, sweet, man. Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Evan McDermott or on Twitter at Evan_McDermott. And then the podcast itself, The Fifth Dimension. I'm almost thrown off YouTube. So I would recommend any audio platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different ones.
That's the way to
go. Just type in The Fifth Dimension and you see my name, Evan McDermott. It's going to be right there. So that's where I'm at. So awesome, man.
Thank you again, brother. It was a deep dive, but it left me feeling more hopeful. So that's always a good sign.
Oh yeah, white pills on a Tuesday afternoon. I could never complain about that, right?
Let's go. All right, man. Thanks again.
All right, thanks, man.